Hello there, welcome back. Here's Red Shoes, the Michael Powell-Pressburger film. Again, like 8.5 and Picnic Time Vlog, Daisuke Beppu did a live stream this one. I did comments to the side of it and stuff, but I've obviously had a lot to say about it, even beyond what the comments said. Really, it's just when you do that, you get to see a lot of perspectives, but they're not your perspective, so it's quite interesting to mix with other people and see their different views. But you also, sometimes I want to do a video about what my perspective of the film is, rather than just, it's good to actually talk to other people and see how your perspective interacts with theirs, but there's also times when you want to just have a lot of a chat about what you felt about the film, even though it's more a monologue than chat. But so, The Red Shoes, this is one of the mid-period Pressburger films. This was like after they'd started, but it was this was pretty much at the peak before it started. I mean, pretty much the Powell-Pressburger 40s were really high in the early 50s, and then they started to get more conventional in the films. I don't think they were getting the kind of films they were interested in. I think it went more into war movies and things. They weren't really those kind of directors. This was the peak of their powers when they'd had some successes. They were moving forward different types of stories. I mean, you were having The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, you had The Matter of Life and Death. You know, all these films that were expanding upon, even though it was during the war, they were expanding upon elements and stories to create other, to do like fantasies or character studies. They were doing unique studies of British class within a war situation and what things meant, what the Americans mean to the British, what did the traditional Germans mean to the British, like Colonel Blimp. So they were doing a lot of stuff about the war during the war. And I think that was the best part of the, when we're doing the wars, but it was during, it was fresher, because it was real life as they lived it, expressed through film and expressed through film convention. I think some of the films they did after the war maybe weren't as quite as fascinating to them, especially something like the River Plate film. I think at that point they were starting to get sick of the war themes, because Britain became obsessed with war even after the war, and there was lots of war films and stuff. I don't think it did much for Powell-Pressburger. I think they were kind of, they had their own things they wanted to do, like nuns and Himalayas and stuff. So Red Shoes was one of the films that was developed by Pressburger before the war, abandoned, and then after the war, when we were looking for a project, Pressburger said to Powell, "We've got this." So they developed that film and it became Red Shoes. And it became one of the great Archer films, and it's essentially about the artistic purpose, and it's essentially an opera. I mean, this and Tales of Hopping are more operatic. They have elements of drama, but it's kind of, in some ways, it's sort of what Argento did with Suspiria and Inferno later in the 70s and 80s, where there are elements of drama in them, but it's all about the lighting, it's all about the people in the frame, it's all about the artistic achievements. Again, this one's about Ballet, so was Suspiria. Then Tales of Hoffman was a much more fragmented story that to a lot of people wasn't satisfying, as was Inferno. So it was that kind of thing that was, I think Argento was very influenced by these kind of films, frankly. I think there was a lot of homages going on there, and loving homages, so it's not like it was sinister or anything. But this was when they were pushing against the kind of, they were always against realism. They were never fully realistic directors and writers. Pressburger wrote about British society, but he wrote as an outsider, so you could see a lot of the foibles of British society and the problems within it. And Michael Powell was a outsider within the British system. He was part of the British system, but he was a bit of a dreamer, and he was kind of aloof from reality in some ways. He was a fantasist. So there were these two outsiders who complemented each other really well, because Pressburger could do a lot of character detail and Powell could really pushed the fantastical elements and the colour and the how to put people in frames interestingly. I mean, it was just a very good collaboration. But they were making films about outsiders, so Colonel Blimp is the insider who ended up being an outsider because he hasn't moved with the times, and Matter of Life and Death is about a pilot who suddenly becomes an outsider because he's in heaven. You know, it's like part of it's inside the British system and part of it's outside, and a lot of their films are like metaphors for that kind of weird tension within the British soul, really. And you got stuff that I Know Where I'm Going, where it's a woman who's very traditional, who's going up to Scotland to get married, and she starts to realise she's a little weirder and more interesting than she thought as she interacts with the locals and things like that. It's like there's parts of the inside, there's part of the outside. They both know the class system, and they know the system they're in, but they're not embracing it so much. There's something about it they don't like, there's something about it they do like. It's a complicated look at British life. And so that, I mean, that kind of went from like the late 30s to the early 60s when Powell did Peeping Tom and his career ended. But it's also after that period, it's also a case of like a lot of films became a little more working class, so it wasn't really a place for them as much anymore, because they were talking about an older generation, and that generation had gone. It had gone from being the current generation, so a lot of the tensions were really fresh, to being like the older generation where you're going to look back at nostalgia more, and so it's going to be kind of, you know, a bit sentimental, or they're going to be a bit more villainous because the new generation hates the older generation and can't see the complexities of the older generation. So the society had moved from them in a way, just the same way like Colonel Blimp had society moved on from him. So Powell-Pressburger, even before the split, they society had moved on from their obsessions a bit. Like the 50s is much more about conventional war movies. We can't have this weird stuff, we have to have much more traditional stuff to solidify our great victory over the Nazis and stuff. That was the thing. And that didn't really work with the kind of outsiders that Powell-Pressburger did. And then in the 60s it was just like the working class rebel against the oppressive tradition. And Powell-Pressburger were more the rebels but also part of the tradition, so they weren't really on either side really of the 50s or the 60s, so the 50s films wore them down a little bit, and the 60s their careers were pretty much over. So the Red Shoes kind of comes into this at the peak before when these changes took place, and it's all about the peak of artistry, where this Lemerov, played by Anton Walbrook, who's also in Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, playing this pure artistic director producer who puts on all these ballets, and he believes in ballet as the art beyond real life, beyond anything else. He's lots of collaborators who all work with him. He's got his musicians, he's got his ballet dancers, he's got his set designers. They're all a group, they all get together and talk about the production, and he gives them some leeway and then tells them, no, that's wrong. When a decision needs to be made, he makes decisions, but he also gives them some sort of scope to expand upon what their instincts tell them about the project. So in some ways he's a taskmaster, he knows what he wants, but in other ways he knows he needs to work with talented people and gives them space to be talented. You know, it's a kind of mix of warmth and coldness, which has been pointed out by the character. He's a mix of warmth and coldness throughout the film, and he's just trying to get his sense of perfection. His one weakness is he thinks people should stay with the ballet. He thinks the ballet is the most important thing in life. It's the great thing, it's the thing that makes life worth living. And if someone gets married or something and leaves, that's them cut off. So why would you want to go back to real life? It's boring. It can't give you anything. It's just not what life's about. It's just like, it's a compromise. So when people are addicted to this lifestyle and stay with him, he's very loyal to them, but as soon as they say go back to what he considers a lower form of life, which is like parties and, you know, like it's very social grounds. It's the people who are his customers, but he doesn't really think of them as worth dealing with. It's like, why would you do that? So whenever someone gets married, falls in love, gets married, he's like, no, that's his big thing, it's his big weak point. He can't get that people can move on, they can move back and forward. He doesn't get that people's lives move on without the ballet as well. No matter how obsessed he is with it, sometimes people need a break from it, he doesn't get it. It's, you're all in or you're not, you're nothing, is his point of view. And so he's like the centre point, that the main character is Vicky Page, played by Maura Shearer, who's this ballet dancer who's professional. She's learned her craft, but she's still trying to get back up to. She's trying to get up to the level of a great dancer. She's a good dancer, but not a great dancer, and she manages to use her contacts to be seen by Limerov. At the same time, there's a composer who's some of his music was stolen during one of Limerov's productions by the composer, who was also his teacher. When Limerov finds out of this, he quietly lets go of the teacher and he brings the student in at a lower job. It starts to give him commissions to do some music for his ballets, and he's a very talented guy, and he's played by Marius Gorin. Not your greatest romantic lead. He looks like too old to be a student, and he's kind of the weak spot of the film compared to everyone else. He's okay, but it's like when you see Roger Livesley and Colonel Blimp playing this kind of character, this youthful character, when he was playing a young Colonel Blimp, he was much more natural and he was much warmer. And Gorin's a bit colder, and I think it means sometimes the warmth of the character doesn't come through as much as it could have to make the drama more moving and precise. So I think someone like Gorin's maybe more appropriate age for the character compared to some of the actors Powell worked with, but he doesn't have the warmth really. So you see both of them come up within Limerov's troupe. Basically, one is a dancer who gets promoted once the lead ballet dancer goes off to get married, the ultimate sin in Limerov's viewpoint. He needs a new dancer, and he's seen Maura Shearer's character dance before alone on the stage. He sees that she's the passion. If he pushes her, she can become something great. So he promotes her and starts getting his people to push her to make her as good as possible. He's also pushing the composer to be as good as possible, and they start to do some great ballets. They start to deliver hit after hit. The first ballet they do is The Red Shoes, which is their big success. It's like the one that defines them. This is the big film, the big ballet, the one that pushes them from being unknowns to knowns, and that's the reputation maker. And that whole sequence is done in the film. We see the ballet in the film, or a cut down version of it. And it's done with a lot of sort of cinematic tricks. So you start outside the ballet and you go inside the ballet to see what they're seeing, almost like when she puts on the red shoes, she jumps into the red shoes and they go on her like, automatically. And as if by magic, you see her projected in mirrors and things, and it's like you're seeing her imagination at work. It's just a wonderful sequence as you're going through different landscapes. I mean, it's suggested of what the audience would be seeing in their minds rather than what they're seeing technically. So you're seeing her going through these landscapes, dancing with these red shoes on. And it's just a wonderful sequence. It's so cinematic, and it's the thing that would lead on to Tales of Hoffman, which was pretty much the whole film was like that sequence expanded to the whole film. Which was too much for some people. I loved it, but it's too much for some people. So after the success, these two people fall in love, and that's when they cut off from Limerov. He can't take it. He can't just accept, okay, they fell in love, they still want to be with his company. And rather than trying to just work with it, he just loses it and fires one, and he fires the composer, and Maura Shearer leaves as well, and she's just mad with him. But because she misses the dance and he misses the music, she ends up coming back to him. But because the composer character has more opportunities as a composer outside the ballet, he can go and get work outside of Limerov. She can't, because she's defined by Limerov. And he gets mad when she goes back to him because he's scared that when she goes back to the dance, that'll take over her life and he'll become unimportant to her. So she's competing with two different people, one who's doesn't want to lose her from his life and one who doesn't want to lose her from the ballet. And they're both so controlling, they're such brutes to her, that ends up driving her mad and she ends up killing herself. That's like the end of the film. And it's a beautiful sequence, even though it's a tragic sequence. And it's quite interesting because you see, despite all his protestations about how awful Limerov is, you can see like the Marcus Maris-Goring character slowly becoming more satanic and more like Limerov as he goes on, and as he comes at the end, is like he could probably be the next Limerov. He's probably going to go down that route of being demanding the lost love. He'll probably go down that route of just going full into the music, even though he hates that attitude. You can just tell he's going down that route. And it's all the whole film's about what do you give up for the artistic life? What's the important thing in your life? Is it the artistry or is it real life? And how a lot of people can't mix it with one or the other. I think a lot of artists that are very unsuccessful in their real life but they're successful in their artistic life, or they give up their artistic life to have a successful family life. It's very hard to have one or the other, and this film's about the choice. I mean, it is not the deepest characters. The characters are defined by their actions because it's a 40s movie, a 40s stylization where they're not going to overcomplicate it with a lot of clutter about various psychological problems the characters might have. No, it tells you who the characters are and then uses like dialogue to fill them in a bit more. But it's not going to go into the stuff like a Cassavetes film like 20 years later would do. Instead, the fantasy elements are what's going to give you the win of life. It's kind of operatic, this film. Even some of the other Powell-Pressburger films, they do share that thing where they have more character than this film does, but you're still learning a lot from the visuals and from the stylizations. It's not all in the characterization within the story, because Powell-Pressburger worked out between them how much to do visually and how much to do through dialogue to give it a nice balance and keep it entertaining and let people interpret it the way they wanted. They weren't trying to force interpretation on you. It's like, this is what the story's about, but you can find your own meaning within the story. And to me, that's one of the film is that you've got the artistry versus the family life elements, but it's up to you to decide what one's more important. It doesn't tell you. All it tells you is this choice drives her mad because she's dealing with two people who are uncompromising in a way that is very cruel to her, and it's just like manipulation between two people who just want their own way. They're not even thinking about what she needs, and that's what drives the tragedy. And it's a tragedy. I mean, it's a tragedy about what's something that you do to make yourself happy becomes the kind of noose around your neck because you can't live without it. So it's like a drug addiction. It's an addiction to anything. You can't live without it. It's what defines your life, defines what you think, defines how you interact with people. And you see, like, in the theatre, all these people are loners, but they make a family together. And a lot of the other artists have found a way to mix real life and the travelling show. Like, they don't have families, but they have bonds with each other. And they found a way. But for some people, it has to be extreme, like not all or nothing. It's like you have to find your variations, you have to find your own way through it. And if you're dealing with someone who is like mad with the highway, it causes a lot of problems. But again, that's interpretation. You can find your own way through this film. It's not telling you exactly what you should be thinking about it. It's presenting the story. And the story's wonderful. The story's like a fairy story, which is why if they put too much psychology into it, it might not have worked. It needed the fairy story aspects of the characters are well defined, but you're not telling them, you're not stopping the film to give you the motivations and the reasons for doing things. You're meant to interpret yourself, and it's what you put into it also affects what's going to come back to you. To me, it's a wonderful film. The shots are beautiful. It's very rich in colour. There's colour. I mean, there's reds, greens, blues, everything. It's a lot of it that's framed where you're getting like different, very kind of distinct colours in the foreground, the background, and it creates a world for you that's very kind of unique. So that even the real world is distinctly fairy story-ish, but you get a lot more colours in the real world, like a variation of colours. And then when you go into the high fantasy, it's used a bit more primary. There's a lot of dominant colour, like in the operas or the ballets. There's a dominant colour that goes through either full spot, following them, and it's just more stripped down to certain colours at that point. Well, in real life, there's more colours all around you. That's how we define it, but it's never ever totally realistic. It's never been trying to be. So it's just a wonderful film. I used to work in the theatre, so watching them go through the backstage, where the backstage almost is separated from the audience. So you work in the theatre, you only ever concerned with the backstage. You're not really concerned. The audience gets their thing by watching it, but they're like a separate entity. And this film kind of gets that they're something that's other. They're not within the landscape of creating it. And a lot of creation comes in a very haphazard way, and you're never quite sure if it's going to come together until almost the last minute, because it's almost impossible to put everything together in the right way. You're dealing with a lot of people who are perfectionists who want everything right, and it all comes together because there's lots of people who are going to put it all in to make sure this thing's right, which is why Limerick wants people to just give themselves up to the art. But there are complications to that, and that's what the film also gets to through the primary story. But art depends on people giving their all to it, and people from the top to the bottom doing that, and it's like, it's kind of an obsession that a lot of them have, but a lot of them have learned to live with it. And you're getting these young people not quite sure how to live with it yet, so it's kind of tricky in that way, but it's trying to show you the problem. But it's a wonderful film. It really is wonderful. It's one of my favourite Powell-Pressburger films, though I do like Tales of Hoffmann more. But I'm very unusual. Most people like this one more than Tales of Hoffmann. Same way I like Inferno more than Suspiria. But it's wonderful, it's beautiful. I would highly recommend it. Just go see it. It's beautiful. Try and see it in Blu-ray with this one. This is quite a nice print. The ITV one is very nicely done. It's also a Criterion one in America. Either one you're going to be happy with. I'm pretty sure it's the same restoration, because it was restored in 2009, so I think that might be the restoration that both discs got. But it's definitely worth it, and it won't cost you much. This ITV4 one won't cost you much at all if you're in Britain. It's very inexpensive now, because it's been out for a long time. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you soon with another video. Okay, bye.